we've titled today's session Learning Hubs. It's a follow-up from a separate webinar we had looking at the government-funded initiative of family hubs. And the subtitle is A United Church Playing Its Part Supporting Families with Levelling Up. Something that I think as Christians we can really say amen to, the fairness, the justice, the understanding that we are all valued. So we hope by the end of this session that you'll understand more about family hubs, heard more about them, and perhaps be able to think about next steps in your area. It's lovely to be able to welcome Claire Fenner Crawley from ChurchWorks Commission, as well as some church leaders that I'll introduce to you later. Claire, can I ask you to set the scene for us on family hubs and maybe introduce yourself and ChurchWorks in the process? Thank you, Claire.
Absolutely. Can you all hear me okay? Great. Yeah, hi, thanks so much for having me with you today. I'm probably looking around the room, I'm one of the least expert people on sort of family support compared to a lot of you who I think have been working in this area for a lot of years, but I work with the ChurchWorks Commission on the secretariat of that. So I'm really happy to be able to just set the scene a little bit and talk about sort of some of the national conversations we've been having. I'm also part of the Bristol Unity sort of movement, so I've been to a few of these before and find them really useful. So I'll just share my screen, and I've got a PowerPoint to just sort of set the scene, who the ChurchWorks Commission is, and a bit about family hubs. For some of you who were at the webinar on family hubs a month ago, hopefully this will just be a useful recap, and bear with me as I go through. So I work for the ChurchWorks Commission. If you haven't heard of us, we are a commission of 24 senior church leaders from the 15 sort of major UK denominations. So I'm part of the secretariat. I'm not the senior church leader, but I have the privilege of working and serving with all of these denominations that I've listed here. And Mark, I'm assuming these slides will be sent out afterwards, so you'll have more time to look at all of those, and I've added a sort of link. But the idea is it's, you know, many different denominations coming together. And I'm just going to go on to my next slide. And here's just a little picture of us. The caveat I always have to give with this photo is that a lot of our female commissioners just didn't happen to be able to come that day. So you sort of get quite a good idea of the sort of breadth of the commission in some ways, but it is a bit more female than that. But that's the commissioners together. And they've come together to sort of unite ecumenically across different denominations and sort of focus on priorities for UK COVID recovery. I sort of feel like that phrase is maybe getting a bit old now, but, you know, just the idea that people who've been really disadvantaged and communities that were disadvantaged during the pandemic, really aiming to sort of how the church can support those communities going ahead in these years post-pandemic. So the particular things that the commissioners have agreed sort of as denominations to collaborate on have been stuff around sort of community well-being and how churches can support people in that, including social prescribing, the cost of living crisis. And at the moment we are very busy in the midst of registering people for the Warm Welcome campaign. I've added the link there. If you haven't checked out the Warm Welcome campaign, I'd really suggest that you do. And actually, since I wrote these slides, it's now, I think, 2,000 plus warm spaces registered to open churches, but it's also expanded into libraries and mosques and synagogues and all sorts of people opening to support people this winter. And then the third priority, which the commissioners said that they wanted to sort of focus on as a united church together, was supporting children, young people and families, which is what brings us on to family hubs. So as I've already said, the sort of the aim of the commission, how it works, is to collaborate between denominations, but also to collaborate with the government. So we sort of come together quarterly and have discussions with different ministers and departments about the role of the church in those things. And the family hubs is one of the key conversations that we've been having nationally. So in terms of just to very quickly lay out what is a family hub, there are sort of two different answers to this question. So there's one answer, which is a family hub is something that's been going on for many years. Lots of churches have been running them. And at its most kind of general, a family hub is just a network of people and agencies serving families, often coming together as some sort of one-stop shop. Sometimes that's in the same building, sometimes it might just be networked together in another way. Often family hubs might cross-refer with other churches, with other charities, and sometimes with the sort of local council. And we'll be hearing about lots of examples of different types of family hub and family support a bit later on. And the idea really is to strengthen and support families by providing quality care in a sort of safe and familiar space with safe and familiar people. And you know, those can happen sort of anywhere in the country. Contrasted to that is the particular thing that ChurchWorks has been working on, which is the Department for Education's rollout of family hubs in the last year. So this is the Department for Education's new model that they want 75 pilot local authorities. It's the way that they want them to deliver family support. So it incorporates lots of the things that I just said, a one-stop shop, a lot of it in the same building, networked together. But it's a bit more specific because it is about how the local authority children's team commissions their children's and family services. So at the webinar in September, the National Centre for Family Hubs, who've been commissioned to deliver this nationally, came and spoke about this in more detail. So I'd really suggest you watch that webinar back if you haven't. And I've basically just pinched their diagram, which sort of tells you all of the different things that they would expect a local authority children's services team to offer in a family hub. 75 particular local authorities have been chosen to get the funding to implement a family hub like this. And if you click on that link, you'll be able to see the government announcement of the types of kind of the amounts of funding that they'll be getting, which will be interesting to see if that stays after next week's budget, and which local authorities those are. And so you can kind of see there's lots and lots of different things that a family hub would be expected to deliver. And some of these things probably a church wouldn't deliver. You know, you can imagine birth registration. That's a pretty local authority statutory service. But there are some of these things that Andrea from the Centre for Family Hubs has put around the outside that are particularly the type of things that churches might be able to collaborate with the local authority in being part of the family hub network and network of different organisations delivering these things, including sort of debt counselling if someone had a CAP centre already, and then in the pink, youth work, sort of youth mental health. There's sort of, you might be able to spot different things in this diagram that might be ways that churches could particularly contribute to a family hub. And a key thing that the ministers, including Andrea Leadsom, who are involved in family hubs, have been saying all along, is that they really want the voluntary sector and the faith sector to be more integrated into family hubs. That's quite complicated in practice of how that happens, but that is the real aim and the message coming from central government that they want us to communicate. Mark asked me to really quickly think about how this helps with levelling up. So I'm sure you all know this, but levelling up is this kind of political kind of phrase used by Boris Johnson's government and now back in fashion with Rishi Sunak's government, which I think is good, around trying to sort of level things up across the country by boosting productivity and spreading opportunities and improving public services. And as Mark said at the beginning, it's not very difficult to convince Christians that levelling up is important, because in 2 Corinthians 8, it speaks about those who had much didn't have too much, those who had little didn't have too little, and even that is harking back to the collecting of manna within the Exodus narrative. So levelling up is baked into the whole of salvation history, basically, and it just seems like a really good shared mission, especially when family hubs are involved to support vulnerable families. Just seems like if a local authority is going to be thinking about how to really improve things for the most vulnerable families, that is a shared mission that we can think about how to collaborate and get behind. And of course, every local authority is going to be hugely stretched in how they think about doing that. So it's a great opportunity for us to partner and befriend, find the best way to come alongside. And I think churches can really get behind and help with levelling up, because so much of levelling up is about sort of doing things with families and not to them. And that is why the National Centre for Family Hubs and the Department for Education really want churches and faith groups involved, because they know that we are better at doing things with families than to them, which is more what a sort of a statutory service might come across as. So the message just keeps on being, they're really keen for faith groups to get involved. The key is in how you actually make that happen, which we'll talk about in a minute. So I'll just finish with 3 sort of suggestions of what a church being involved in a family hub could actually look like. So the first is as a connected partner in some way. So the local authority have their services, and you as a church might have a toddler group, a parenting group, some other sort of group, and improve signposting and referrals from the family hub to you and from you to the family hub. The second thing is there might be an opportunity to be some sort of co-host. So some of the family hubs will have a sort of hub and spoke model where they need to deliver some of their services, especially things like youth work, outside of their main building. And it might be that you could be a good partner in some of that, or do some sort of co-location if that was appropriate. And the third thing is that there may be opportunities for sort of parenting courses or sort of particular courses to actually be commissioned partners of family hubs provision, or if you have a partnership with a Christian agency that sort of delivers some sort of service that is based in a church, then it may be that there could be a conversation about actually being paid to deliver parts of a family hub. So those are sort of 3 things that we have talked about with the National Centre, and they have sort of provisionally said, yes, that's the kind of thing we're thinking as well for how churches might be involved. So in terms of what avenues are open to us next, the National Centre for Family Hubs has initiated this co-design set of meetings that happen sort of about every month with faith leaders. And my colleague David went to one last week, and I think Mark, you were there as well. And those do seem to be genuine places of discussion about how faith groups can be more involved in family hubs. So that's sort of talking more about the policy and how it might happen. So I don't know if people like you would sort of have time to go to those things, but if you wanted to, you'd be very welcome to come and have a discussion about the co-design. And it's that openness from the National Centre to speaking to churches that is so sort of interesting about all of this. But then in a local area, it's about sort of starting a conversation with other churches in your unity movement to think about what you are doing locally and how those things could synergize. And then really it's about contacting the local authority children's services team. And we and Gather have put together a kind of template letter that might help you to start that process. And really Mark and his team are doing such a great job of supporting lots of you in thinking about how to do that. And I think now we're going to go into a time of hearing a bit about some family hubs and then comparing notes about how that has actually been going. So I'm all ears to hear sort of how that's been. And I think that'll be a really important part of this, is supporting each other in how that's been going.
Claire, that's really helpful. Thank you so much. Brilliant way to set the scene for us and give us a big picture of what's going on and what this is about. Just 2 quick things I should have said at the beginning. We are videoing this session and it will be on our website, on our YouTube site shortly. So if you want to share it or watch it again, there's that possibility. Also, I forgot to mention on our team, Steve Botham. Steve, would you just give us a wave? Steve is based in the West Midlands and is important regional director for us. So sorry for missing you out, Steve. Before I worked for Gather, was a vicar in the Anglican Church for 15 years and probably undervalued the importance of our toddler group, which my wife kindly helped lead. I could see it was an important place for parents and toddlers to gather, but perhaps had underappreciated its importance for the physical, mental, social and spiritual well-being of children and their parents, whether it's on health or food needs, whether it's mental health, or whether it's social sides, children learning to communicate and build relationships. All of these skills are so important for their success in school. And we know that if children don't succeed in school, actually the range of problems they're likely to have for the rest of their lives is very significant. So Family Hubs is about trying to support families so that children can thrive for the long term. And of course, parents are key to that. I'm going to go straight to Louise Willis, because I think Louise is a little bit short of time. And Louise, we've only got a couple of minutes for each sort of story, so I'm going to try and keep you to time, but we would love to hear about the parenting support that you're offering with Hope for Families in Northampton. So do you want to just give us a quick introduction and tell us what it is that you're managing to do supporting parents?
Sure, thank you so much, Mark. Good afternoon, everybody. It's lovely to be with you this afternoon. So as Mark said, my name's Louise. I'm based in Corby in Northamptonshire, and I'm the founder of a charity called Hope for Families. And we work with parents, carers and couples across the county of Northamptonshire and beyond now, thanks to the benefits of online. Our work was actually born under the umbrella of Hope Church in Corby, which is an Elim Pentecostal church, where I was a member of staff, and we began to connect with partners in the community in the sectors of healthcare, education, statutory sector, and just really saying to them, quite a few years ago now, how can we best serve you in how you're supporting parents? What can we do to come alongside you in that? And we really just saw a great opportunity, a real wave came our way really in terms of openness of working with the church. And in 2020, actually, the work and the potential of the work outgrew the role, and we made the decision to set up Hope for Families as an independent charity, not knowing the pandemic was coming, obviously, and the impact that would have on parents. And so we registered last year in May, and we've now got a team of 9 licensed facilitators. We work closely with the National Charity Care for the Family, who train all of our facilitators for us, and we run courses online and in person in partnership with schools, with Home Start in Corby, with the healthcare sector and statutory sector. We're just really passionate about the church getting out of the building, meeting parents exactly where they are, not expecting them to come and find us where we are, and just loving them, championing them, cheering them on, really just wherever they are. And we're hugely privileged to be able to walk alongside them for however long they allow us to. That's Hope for Families. You can find out more by visiting our website, which is hopeforfamilies.org.uk. And if you want to get in touch, I am going to still stay on the call, Mark, but I'm going to be traveling. So do drop a message, or if you'd like to get in touch via the website, please do.
Great, Louise. Now, again, referring back to my time as a vicar, I ran the Alpha Parenting course in our local school with the idea that church families would come, but we'd also reach out to school families. The reality is we got some of the keen church families coming, but it was very hard to reach the school families. I think they felt a little bit threatened maybe by the idea that they needed to have parenting courses. But you're actually managing to reach parents, aren't you? And tell us what you think the success is for your work that enables you to reach parents.
First and foremost, I have to say that it's a move of God. It's the Holy Spirit, and we had a point where we could jump on board and ride with it, or cower in fear, and we decided to jump on and go for it. I've said this to Mark quite a few times. It's all about relationship. It's all about persisting in relationship. It's all about building trust. It's definitely about finding the gatekeepers, and those people who you can build a rapport with, and they can then kind of let you into that next inner circle, whatever that is. I'm really grateful for those gatekeepers over the years who have kind of allowed us in and have accredited our work. That's been really, really key, to be honest. And actually, forgive me, because one thing I forgot in the original spiel is the most important bit, which is about the family hubs. So apologies. So we are actually working with Northamptonshire Children's Trust, who facilitate our family hubs in the county, and we're delivering courses in partnership with them in their family hubs. And really, that looking back, that has all come about from relationship, building trust, persistence. It's been a good 5-6 years in the making to get us to where we are now. So it's definitely a marathon and not a sprint.
And you're getting people from all socioeconomic, levels, joining you?
We certainly try to be as accessible as possible, and our data shows that we are being successful in that. There's always a fine line between putting value on what you're doing and making sure that it's accessible to everybody. But we run a bursary scheme. We do have a registration cost for our courses, but it's very low. We work really hard to do that, obviously, as a charity. We also have a bursary scheme where we offer a 50% discount for people. And also, if people can't afford to come for at all, then we'll always give out free places. And actually, our courses that we're running in partnership with the family hubs, we have actually managed to secure funding for them so that we can offer them completely free of charge, and there's no barrier there financially. But it's always hard to know whether you're reaching the parents that really need the support. And I guess we won't ever know that, but we can do everything that we can to try and be as accessible as possible.
Lovely. Louise, thank you. Brilliant to have your input there, and thank you for being willing to sort of engage with those that are interested beyond this call. So thank you.
You're welcome. Please do get in touch. I'd love to hear from you.
Brilliant. Do you want to put your email in the chat? Would that be a possibility, if you're happy to do that? Let's go across to Joy French, if that's okay, in Hillsborough and Sheffield. Joy, thank you so much for joining us. What I think is interesting about your work is the detached nature of it, that actually you're visiting homes. So do you want to just introduce us to your project and tell us about that particular element of it?
Sure. Lovely to be with you all. Can you all hear me okay? Great. So I'm Vicar of St John's Ollerton in Sheffield. I'm sat in church right now. And our church has had quite a long history of working with children and families in different parts of our community, including an estate that has quite high levels of social need. What we discovered in 2020 was that our families worker, so Beck, who runs our toddler ministry, and Suzanne, who coordinates our work on the Wing Gardens estate, were between them supporting, we counted at the time, 14 families at what we would have considered to be way beyond a church's, excuse my phone, just turn that off, way beyond a church's universal kind of level of provision. So we looked at that and we thought, well, we want to make this work sustainable, we want to make it replicable, and we want to make it safe, recognizing that if we're going to be working with people with high levels of need, that actually we're doing that as the church, it has to be done in a way that is all of those things. So we spoke to our friends down in Yeovil who'd set up a project called Yeovil for Family 10 years previously, and we worked with them to franchise and adapt their model for our context. So we out of that developed the Family Works, and I'll put in the chat the links to our website and how you can find us. The Family Works basically works by supporting families who are referred to us for up to a year. So a family could be referred by a professional, they could be referred through the community, through schools, through different organisations. And most importantly, we're not a statutory agency, so families don't have to work with us. They choose to work with us, but we're very, very clear about how that work is going to be placed. So, right at the start, there's information sharing agreements and commitments for families to sign up to. So what we do is we walk with a family for up to a year. We provide that family with a link worker and a family mentor. So the link worker is the case holder for the family, and they are the person who will do all the running around that relates to that family's needs. So if it's rehousing, if it's a domestic abuse situation, if it's liaison with school, whatever that situation is, that's the link worker's job. The family mentor is a church-based volunteer who will go out to the family, meet them in their family home for up to an hour a week, and predominantly just listen. They're there to be that safe person, that sounding board, that person who is engaged engaged with that family, with those parents, listening to whatever is going on. The project's trauma informed, so that means we're really investigating how we can support people in a way that has thought about their entire story, and we consider it our real privilege to walk with a family and hold their story and enable them to be able to talk about their story more freely. So part of what we do right at the beginning of our journey with the family is a family mapping journey, which is huge kind of pieces of flip chart, lots of post-it notes, and the family share their story with us. We use that to work with them to define the objectives that the work is going to work into. So across that year, we're reviewing at months 4, 7 and 10, just to ensure that everything is kind of where we and the family thought we were moving to, recognizing that this work is never done. And we've exited with a couple of our initial families so far, and we have seen significant change through the course of the year. We're currently in Sheffield. We have worked really, really hard to try and get commissioned partnerships with our local authorities, and also working quite closely with the Diocese of Sheffield. So both of our bishops of Doncaster and Sheffield, are our project patrons. I'm not going to tell you that journey has been easy. It's not been easy at all. We've been grant funded to date, and actually the project itself is not secure at this moment in time. We really do need to secure the funding to make the project viable into 2023 and beyond. But we are in conversations with Rotherham Council, who are looking to commission us for an intervention with children or families of children in Key Stage 1 who are at risk of permanent exclusion. So that's infants who are at risk of being permanently excluded, because the data shows that when a child is permanently excluded, their outcomes across the whole of life plummet. And so that would be a kind of piece of cohesive work with that local authority to try and say, if we can get in early and work with those families and put a mentor and a link worker alongside before that point in time, what is it that it's possible to prevent? So we're really kind of praying that commissioned work becomes possible, because that really will kind of set us on our course. But it's been a fabulous adventure, and it is such a privilege to walk with our families and support them as they tell their story.
Joy, that was really super. Great portrait there in just a couple of minutes. Thank you so much. I love your story. I mean, obviously the impact is very high, but it reminds us that it's not all about the physical building, that actually it's about having a model that gets into the community, that reaches into the community, and shows that depth of connection that you've got. Really helpful to see that. You mentioned the impact, but also your journey with exploring funding from the civic sector. So thank you so much for that really helpful little picture. If we can, I don't know whether you're able to give us any contact details, we can maybe supply that through Gather, but it'd be great to put people in touch with you who want to explore that further. And we'll definitely be praying for you for that commissioning. We know how important that is. So thank you, Joy. If you're able to stay on in any way so we can maybe answer questions later, that would be great. But I want to go across. Can I just check if Helen Wade is on the call? Helen, can you just, oh, brilliant, yeah. I want to bring in Helen at this point because Helen is really operating with a hub and spoke model, which I think is interesting for us to think about. So Helen, you've got your main hub in Birkenhead, but then you reach out to churches that are along the Mersey there, including in some deprived areas. So if you could just give us a snapshot really of that relationship, what the hub does and how it supports the spokes, that would be ever so helpful, Helen.
Okay, well, thank you for asking me to come and speak to you all. And it's just great hearing the passion behind everything, and seeing people that are in similar work, which it can be quite isolating, I think, sometimes when you're trying to do these things. So just a little bit of context as to where I'm coming from. So yes, we're based in Rock Ferry, which is in Birkenhead on the Wirral, and Wirral's a bit of a funny place because there's a 12-year life expectancy difference between one side of the Wirral Peninsula and the other side. And so there's a lot of work that has been done and continuing to be done around improving life expectancy in the area that we're at. In Rock Ferry, the children are in the bottom 3% deprivation wise, so it's a lot of deprived families. So the project began excuse me, as a social action project in an Anglican church, although we are supported by AOG churches, URC, Methodist churches, Catholic schools and churches. So we really do work with lots and lots of partners. So the project started 34 years ago, and it was just basically this little one group that began. For 26 years we were in a vestry. We didn't have our own building or anything. We were just in the vestry of a church. The church was great, you know, we just used it, and people came in because it was a church, interestingly, sometimes. Because I remember one lady came in because she saw the spire and she was struggling with alcoholism, and she came in and we just supported her. So but interestingly, sort of a few years ago, I was at a diocesan meeting that was all around family and supporting family. So all the usual ones were there, care for the family and such like. And Fiona Bruce was doing a talk about family hubs. And our thing has always been a peer support model. So we've got all these peer support groups throughout the local area. And when she was speaking, I thought, that's what we've been doing for years, but it wasn't a hub. And we'd always wanted our own building, and the church was growing and the project was growing as well. So we were kind of getting under each other's feet, but being very gracious. And so we prayed in a building, basically. And so now we're placed in a community village, which means we're supported by other organisations locally. So we really are the church in the community, as opposed to people coming to the church building. So we run all sorts of things in the hub. We have drop-ins, we've got lots of different groups, parenting courses, a lot of the things that other people have already mentioned, groups for teenage mums, free music lessons for children, reading groups, peer support groups still carry on, lots of mental health groups as well, and we have other people in. So we've got Wirral Mind in at the moment that do more sort of therapy with parents, because we're not therapists. We're although very experienced in working with people with mental ill health, we're not therapists, so they support with that. And we're part of similarly, we've had trust funding for years and years, and always been quite precarious, and relied on voluntary contributions from whoever we can get them from. But recently we got commissioned by the local council as part of an early help alliance. So it's called the Family Toolbox Alliance. There's a website which you can go on if you look on Family Toolbox, and which is basically a resource for parents, but we're the organisations that back it up. So we're part of that. We've also had some recent success in big. So I'm now on the steering group for family hubs for Wirral. Wirral wasn't one of the original 75 organisations, as somebody I think had popped in the chat there about the 75 organisations that received funding. We didn't, because we're right next to Liverpool. The ferry across the Mersey comes to Wirral, that's if you don't know where it is. So and Wirral is always seen as not being as deprived as Liverpool. So Liverpool were one of the first 75 boroughs that got it, and we didn't, but we were successful in getting the transformation funds, so that's up to £1 million for Wirral, but that's been mostly so far being put into reviving some of the children's centres, so not coming to community groups like us. But hopefully, now that the steering group's there and we have got representation from the community voluntary faith sector, there will be it's just working out now how they will link together. So it's kind of coming from the opposite angle. So as well as that, I'm also on the CVF reference group to the Health and Wellbeing Board as well with the local council. So that's a space where smaller organisations like ours are able to have a voice, and they're very keen. And I think because of the COVID pandemic, people have seen how the faith sector and the voluntary sector have all come together to support people, and they're ready now to that. In some ways it's given us some credibility, whereas before it was kind of, well, it's just a little church project, it's what they're doing. We've always been really well respected, but I think since COVID things have escalated as far as that's concerned. So
thanks, Helen.
That's it. Yeah.
Oh, bless you. Thank you. That's a fantastic picture of what's going on. And yeah, I mean, I think we all need to put up our emoji hands of applause for 34 years of family hubs in the world. That's absolutely extraordinary. And again, it just comes from the passion that we have as Christians, isn't it, to see families blessed. So, you know, God bless you for you and your team's work there. And yeah, thank you for sharing. There are, of course, a number of parachurch organisations that are doing amazing work in this area. I mean, obviously, food banks and CAP, but also organisations, national organisations like Home for Good, that supports churches and church families to support children in care, Safe Families, where children are vulnerable, and working with families, PLG, and Kids Matter, along with, I'm sure, others. James Sloan is with the Imagine organisation. I think I'm right with that, James, aren't I? At Frontline Church. And can you just give us a quick word on your experience with Safe Family, working with Safe Families in your area?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So as it happens, we're taking a ferry across the Mersey from the Wirral over to Liverpool. So yeah, we're based in inner city Liverpool, and Liverpool was one of the first, or if not the first, contract, I think, nationwide with Safe Families to be launched. And after 3 years, it became the first to be cut by the local authority for reasons we're not to know. But that was devastating for us as a church to see the impact that had to lose that contract in our city. So myself and a friend from the church just began to prayer walk. I think Louise talked before about the starting with prayer and letting the Holy Spirit lead. So we just began to prayer walk our local streets and ask God for wisdom, for strategy, for direction, knowing where to go next. And we kind of got in touch with a funder. So Steve Morgan of Red Row Homes funds quite a lot of activity in the Northwest. And we just kind of put an idea to them to say, could we replicate the kind of Safe Families model, but with private funding, and put the idea out to them that they could fund a family worker for 5 years, £25,000 a year. And after a few back and forth conversations, they agreed to fund that fully. So we got £125,000 over 5 years to fund a family support worker, almost full time. And we pinched her from Safe Families with their blessing, basically to try and pioneer, to guinea pig a new way of doing Safe Families, whereby you wouldn't need the local authority buy-in, but you could do it with church funding, grant funding, donors, voluntary staff, but take the best bits of Safe Families and their reputation with money coming from other sources in the local authority, because it's a fantastic model, but it is very reliant on local authority funding. And as you know, that can be in question at the moment with pressures on local authorities. So for the last 2 years, 2.5 years now, we've been running this model with Safe Families. All volunteers are trained by them. Any referrals go on their database, but we as a local church charity are running the project ourselves. And the benefit is that they are coming into our building, they're using our food pantry, our parent toddler group, we've got a nursery, they get this real holistic wraparound service. We have drop-in housing advisor, debt advisors they can use. So we've become the family hub essentially, with all the expertise and the benefit of the Safe Families reputation. So it's been a fantastic model. I think, like Joe was saying before, we're at the same point where that 5-year funding will run out and we'll have to find a new way of working. But we're trusting that God has provided so far, and if he's in it, there'll be another way to provide for it moving forward. So it's been an exciting journey. We're not finished yet.
Thanks, James. I'll just refer you back to Claire's presentation, where she said that there are possibly 3 ways that churches could partner with the local authority funded family hubs, or even where there isn't the government funding, I think local authorities are keen to have conversations about this. It is a priority need that they see and are interested in collaboration. So those three ways were churches as connected partners. This involves signposting and referrals, potentially both ways between churches and family hubs. The second way is churches as co-hosts of family hubs provision, involving using church buildings for outreach or one-off events, or more permanently hosting services. And thirdly, churches as commission partners of family hubs, and this involves churches hopefully collectively or in partnership with Christian NGOs being commissioned to provide some of the family hubs provision. I want you to think about perhaps what your next steps are as a church leader. Is it about engaging more widely with other churches? Is it about mapping some of the provision of services that the church offers in your borough or town? How can family hubs maybe build on the warm welcome initiative that actually churches are opening their doors for their community right now? And also to think about what the obstacles are to group hubs. Group hubs where you've got multiple churches working together, or network hubs where actually you're involving cross-sector organizations.